Hey everyone, it's Shamrocked here with my weekly talent build. This is going to be a short and quick video because there's nothing super special about this week. So this is week 7, I believe, and the affixes for week 7 are Fortified, Bolstering, and Storming. So Storming are the little tornadoes that sort of spawn. They're not so bad if you're ranged, they're a little bit worse if you're melee, because they do kind of spawn around the boss and they just kind of rotate. So you just have to watch out and make sure to try not to get hit by them. They don't do a lot of damage, but they're really good at like interrupting you and just being a complete nuisance. So nothing terrible, but more annoying. Bolstering, on the other hand, is a really bad affix. It just adds a lot of time to a dungeon. And unfortunately, there are a lot of pulls where you can't really do anything about it. An example would be like the eagle pulls in Elgathar Academy, where the alpha eagles get like super buffed by them. The worms in Elgathar Academy, the infernos and ruby life pools. Like there are lots of examples of trash packs where there are little smaller minions that die a lot faster than the tougher, bigger minions, and that ends up really buffing them. And it's hard to control if you have a really coordinated group that really is able to, focus down the bigger ads. It's not as bad, but for most groups, it'll be really tough. Another great example is the first pull in Halls of Valor. Getting that dragon super buffed up by Bolstering is always super annoying, and it's stressful for tanks, especially on fortified weeks. So with all of that being said, this is the standard build that I would do. It's actually not much different than last week. The benefit this week is obviously we don't have to take Frost Shock for explosives, which is nice because that frees up a talent point. And we don't have to not take Thunder Shock, which is one of my favorite abilities for crowd control. So basically that point from Frost Shock goes back into Thunder Shock. And then this is what my build would look like. If you need to spec into Curse Dispel, which is the improved Purify Spirit, and that would be for the Temple of the Jade Serpent dungeon, or if you need to spec into Purge, which would be for No-Coup Defensive, Ruby Life Pools, Azure Vaults, and there are a few others that you can take it if you want it, but those are the big three. What I would do is I would take the point either out of Mana Spring or out of Graceful Spirit. My first point would be to take out of Graceful Spirit, unless I'm in a dungeon where I really feel like I need, or not necessarily need, but the extra movement and the lessened cooldown is going to make a big difference. And the best example for me is Ruby Life Pools, because I really like being able to move while I cast for the majority of that dungeon. So in those cases, I would take Graceful Spirit. But in the majority of cases, if I had to choose between the two for a fortified week, I would take Mana Spring. And the reason for that is I don't like drinking in between pulls. I avoid it as much as possible because it is a time sink. And there's nothing worse than sort of like making your group wait for you while you try to recover mana. So Mana Spring will help with that, especially on fortified where you might be healing a little bit more, for each and every pull. So yeah, Mana Spring over Graceful Spirit, unless it's like a specific dungeon where you want to move a lot. If you want both of these talents, the next one I would take from in a fortified week would be Swirling Currents. Swirling Currents is a really great ability, but unfortunately it results in a lot of overheal from your Cloudburst Totem. And I feel like it's more suited for tyrannical weeks where you have those like big damage boss phases. But for fortified, I feel like it's not as useful and it's even more overhealing. So you can also take points from Swirling Currents and go to there. For the dungeons where you want Poison Cleansing Totem, which really would just be Elgathar Academy, I would take 1 point from either of these and 1 point from Swirling Currents. For Halls of Valor, you probably want to take Stone Skin Totem. So in that case, you could actually just go right from Thunder Shock, so you really only need 1 point. And I would take, once again, from either Mana Spring or Graceful Spirit. So entirely up to you. Also, if you're someone who really enjoys movement, especially on a week that's fortified, so there's not as much healing required, you can go into, like if you want to go into Gust of Wind, you can take points from all three of these: Swirling Currents, Surging Shields, Mana Spring, Graceful Spirit, and then go that way. Out of those talents that I would take points out of, Surging Shields is probably the last one, just because on fortified weeks, tanks tend to get slammed, especially on a Bolstering week, so I feel like you should keep that talent. Another talent that you could take from on a fortified week is Earth Elemental. However, if you are doing super high keys like 24s, 25s, 26s, you may want to keep Earth Elemental just because having that extra defensive is always a huge plus. Okay, moving on to the right tree. So this is the build that I actually used last week for the right tree, and I really enjoyed it. The only thing that I didn't like about it is that I didn't have Downpour, which I've really come used to using. However, I feel like with our current kit after 10.0.7 and with Primordial Wave, it's not really needed. Like, I feel like if you are going to take the extra healing cooldown, you either take Downpour or Primordial Wave. And the bonus with Primordial Wave is that you don't have to spend 2 points in Ancestral Awakening to get to Tidebringer. That being said, if you're someone who wants both, what I would take for on a Fortified week is probably Ancestral Vigor, and I could make it look like that. Or if you want, you could take the point out of Lava Surge and put it in there as well if you don't really feel like playing with Lava Surge is super important to you. Another thing that you could do if you just wanted Downpour instead of Primordial Wave, unfortunately it's not just a point for point swap because you do have to put the 2 points into Ancestral Awakening in order to get Tidebringer. So what I would do is, once again, I would take that point out of Ancestral Vigor, go there, and then you basically have to take another point. You could take it out of Resurgence if you feel like mana is not as much of a struggle with you on Fortified weeks, and you could go Mana Spring. That's really completely up to your playstyle, or you could once again take from Lava Surge and do something like that. So I think just because this is a little bit safer, I'm going to post 2 import strings in the details. The first one is going to be the build that I would use, which is this one. So this is the Primordial Wave build, but the other build I'm going to post is the Downpour build, which is, once again, taking points from there and there, and then you take out a Primordial Wave and put in the Downpour. So I'm going to post those 2 builds. Personally, I think you should go with the Primordial Wave build, but if you're someone who really enjoys Downpour and you want to play that way, then this is a build that you could take. Additionally, because Spiritwalker's Tidal Totem, I feel like is more of a niche ability for tyrannical weeks for bosses like Kyraka or Odin, where you may need like quick bursts of healing in a really small amount of time. I think with Fortified weeks it's not as important to have that extra cooldown. So another thing that you could take from is here, and you could put that point back into Ancestral Vigor, and then Mana Tide Totem by itself is not that great, so you could also take that out and put it into Lava Surge, and then this would be your Downpour build. So actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm reconsidering, this is the build that I will post for Downpour, and then I will post the other one for Primordial Wave. So one build with Primordial Wave, you also get the Spiritwalker's Tidal Totem, and then basically this. The other build, you get Downpour, Ancestral Awakening, but you lose the Spiritwalker's Tidal Totem. All right, so with that, I think you're good to go. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer them. But anyways, good luck this week. Bolstering is kind of tough. It's really annoying. It makes keys very hard to time, but I believe in you guys. Good luck, and have a great week.